creator is in no way campaigning for nor endorsing this candidate. This recording is only an opportunity to appear on this platform to convey concerns for the city, express motives for running for office, plans if elected, and intentions to work for and with all constituents.
This video is for those of you that have been calling and texting me asking who is this Ken Parris guy. About a week ago, he reached out to me and said that he wanted to be a guest on my podcast. So maybe today, some of those questions that you have may be addressed and answered. And as history has proven in the city of Washington, just because people don't know you doesn't mean that you can't win an election. Because the current mayor that we have now, many people didn't know who he was, but he got the votes to win from somewhere. Welcome to another episode of the Ear Hustler Podcast, where everybody has a story and God gets the glory. Today our special guest we have is Mayoral candidate of Washington, Georgia, Mr. Ken Parris. How are you doing this afternoon, Mr. Ken?
Great, Patrick. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I want to first of all thank you for allowing me to come over to your home, your beautiful home here in Washington, Georgia, to sit down with you. Thank you for reaching out to me and try to let the citizens here know a little about you.
Well, and it was great to learn that as a child you grew up in this neighborhood, walking through these yards and walking up and down this street, so that was a great memory.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of my best friends actually lived on this street. Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Ken, we first want to ask you, where are you originally from, Mr. Ken?
I grew up in Marietta and went to school at the University of Georgia in Athens.
Okay, you're a Bulldog fan.
Bulldog, that's right.
And how long have you been here in Washington?
I came to Washington in 1999, so 25 years ago. I came here and we set a business up here. After college, I had lived in Washington, D.C. for 2 years, and then I moved back to Atlanta and lived in Atlanta while I was at graduate school at Georgia State, and actually worked at the state capitol while I was going to graduate school. Then after graduate school, I lived in Germany for a year and sort of worked overseas a lot, and then back in Atlanta, and then in 1999, I came here with the business.
Okay, well that's some great info there. Contrary, I had someone call me today and I hadn't seen it. They said that in the News Reporter, and I used to work there years ago, they said that they had something printed in the paper that you had been here for 2 years. And I said, no, I don't think that's factual information, but I'm glad you were able to clarify that.
No, it really refers to the affidavit as a candidate I had to sign about qualifying, and that just references my voter registration. So throughout my life, my voter registration has been in a number of different cities. It was here for some time, then it was in Athens for some time, but it's back here, and that 2 year, the way they cast that was really a little misrepresentative, but it's the last 2 years that it has been here consecutively.
Right. But the final answer to the original question is 25 years. 25
years in the home I'm in, almost 24 years.
Exactly, okay. Okay. Have you ever been involved in politics before?
You know, as I said, when I graduated from college, I worked for a congressman on Capitol Hill. So I got to work in the legislative process, and then when the congressman ran for re-election, I got to come home and be involved in the election. When I moved back to Georgia and started graduate school, I worked on a U.S. Senate campaign. And so I got to travel the state. I was in all 159 counties. I was the field director for that candidate at that time. So that was a great experience in politics. And then when I was 25 years old, I actually ran for state senate in Cobb County, where I had grown up and was living at the time.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, what inspired you to run for the mayor here in Washington?
You know, that's a great question, Patrick, because I'm sort of at the stage in my life where I never thought I would be running for office, but when I came to Washington the first time, I was so intrigued by this city, like so many. It just sort of captures your heart, it draws you in. But after 4 years of having our business here, we were faced with the decision of having to move that business or see it suffer and go under. When I first got here, my first power bill was $15,000. I tried to work with the city for years to get that corrected. They said, well, that's a problem with your building, with your lights. We spent a lot of money changing out lights, changing out light bulbs, trying to keep the lights off, keep power down, but it just never seemed to work. We had some other struggles with the city. We just never got help, it seemed. The city didn't want to help the business. So after 4 years, we packed the business up at great expense and moved it to Athens. But my heart stayed here, and I've always had a love for Washington. And I guess the thing that's motivated me most is it's too much like Groundhog Day. I just feel like the same challenges that were here when I got here are the same things we're struggling with today, and we've sort of had the same type of leadership for the last decade at least, and I just think we need to change. There's so many things we need to change about Washington.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's really not much that has changed here over the last decade or so, at least for the better. If you don't mind me asking, Mr. Ken, how old are you?
I'll be 62 in November.
62 in November. That's ironic, because my next point has the number 62 in it. It's been said that in Washington that 62% minorities and 38% of the registered voting of the population. And we have a lot of, in the community, a lot of people talk about splitting votes. I know especially on the side of town that I grew up in, they preferably want one candidate to represent, a certain group of people. And then when you get another candidate that's of the same background as that candidate, they say that you would split the vote. And I am aware that there's 2 white males and 1 black female running for mayor of Washington.
That's correct.
And have you been catching any flack from any supporters maybe of the other male candidate, like, why are you running, or you shouldn't run, or what I'm trying to ask is, on our side of town, they get mad at people for splitting the vote. I'm just curious, like, does that type of thing happen on, quote, this side of town?
It's an interesting question, Patrick. I think in every community I've ever been in, there are sort of the small-minded group that don't really have vision for the city, they don't have ideas for the county or the legislative district, whatever it may be, and they focus and harp in on little things like that, like, race separation or socioeconomic separation or some sort of bigotry. I just can't be concerned with it. Yes, I've been approached. Yes, I got calls where people said, you need to get out of the race because we chose another candidate a few months ago, and if you stay in the race, you'll split the white vote. I just find it absurd. It's 2023. I'm colorblind. I don't even know why people think about this. I think what's more important is what are we going to do to help everyone in Washington? Not a small group, not a certain group, but everyone in Washington. And that's what I'm focused on.
Right. You're focused on working together.
Working together. That's not inclusive, not exclusive.
And like you said, that seemed to be the biggest problem here over the last several years. Working together, a lot of people are just opposing sides, and you just never really get anything done, bickering and arguing all the time.
It's so disheartening. I mean, I for the last 2 years especially, I don't think our city council's gotten anything done. With the mayor filing ethics violations and Councilman Andy Anderson filing ethics violations and this constant acrimony and fight. They've spent more time on that than they have on the city business. They've also spent a lot of our tax dollars with the city attorney on ethics violations rather than on things that are important to the citizens of Washington. I promise you this, I will make you this promise. If I am mayor, it will not matter who sits at that table. It's not the mayor's decision to who else gets elected, but it is the mayor's responsibility to set the tone, to set the culture, and to say, we're here, we are the council, we have to work together to do what is best for the citizens of Washington. And that is my goal, that is my intent.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of answered my next question a little bit with that. I was going to ask you, in your opinion, do you think racism still exists? But I could tell by that you, like you just said, it's kind of hard. Some people just have their mind made up and just don't want to work together with people that are not like them.
Racism is a problem. It's not just a problem in Washington, Georgia, it's a problem everywhere. I think the good news is we live in a community where we really have an opportunity to eliminate it, to do away with it. One of the things that troubles me greatly right now is, and I'm not even sure the people that did the work and put it together, thought through this, or even understand it. But if you go to the Washington, Georgia website right now, there's not a single white face in any of the, a black face in any of the photos. And I can't understand how a population that is 62% minority is not represented in the website. We've got this rich cultural diversity, and that should be in our website. The city of Washington, since I got here 25 years ago, has had a mission to have great tourism. There's some, I think, false thought that we can get people to come look at old homes and that's an economy. It's not an economy. But more concern is when you go to the tourism page on our website, there's not a single black face on that. So are we saying to the world we only want a certain kind of tourist? I just think those sort of subtleties are too pronounced in our community. It speaks something to our community. It speaks something to outside of our community. I want to do away with all that. It's not about what our race is. It's more about who we are. The world beyond the borders of Wilkes County, and people know this because we've got so many people that have to travel for their jobs, or travel out of the county for medical care, or travel out of the county to buy things because we don't have enough businesses here. Everybody knows when you get outside of Wilkes County, it's a hard world out there. There are struggles. We don't need to fight at home. We should all be for each other and fight the rest of the world. Let's raise everybody up. That's my belief.
Okay, that's a good belief. Do you identify yourself as what political party do you identify yourself as? Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent?
You know, I don't identify. And
Right.
The good news is in Georgia, we don't really have to identify. So the first congressman that I worked for in Washington, D.C., Mickey Edwards from Oklahoma, was the most conservative Republican member of Congress. It was less about his party and it was more about me finding a job because I didn't have a job when I got to Washington, D.C. After working for him for a few months, I worked for a congressman from Georgia who was a Democrat. In 1988, I was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. As a matter of fact, it was the year that John Lewis first ran for Congress, and he and I were delegates together, and it was a tremendous experience for me. Over the years, I've supported Republicans, I've supported Democrats. To me, it's less about the party, it's more about what the people are going to do. Are they going to represent the people? Do they have the people's best interest at heart? And are they going to be more motivated to succeed and make the hard decisions to get things done? Or are they just expedient because of politics?
Exactly. How do you identify yourself, or how can you relate to that 62% of the people here that I was referring to? And you already kind of answered one, how some people in the community feel about you now for even being in the race. But how do you feel you can relate to that 62%?
Well, you know, I think it's probably because of my life experiences. So my mother grew up in Augusta and then moved to Marietta with her family in the late 1950s because Lockheed was creating jobs. My father grew up in Marietta, but until my father was 23, he lived in a public housing complex. And so my family's beginnings are very much like a lot of Georgians. Hardworking, hard scrabble, not a lot of wealth, but rich in family and rich in the wealth of growing up in this great state. My parents worked really hard, and my parents both worked to provide for me and my older brother and younger sister so that we could have opportunities they didn't have. And they were successful in that. My parents made sure I went to college. They helped me fund college. Then my parents supported me after college in every way they could. They encouraged me to go to graduate school. They did everything they could to help me while I was in graduate school. So it was their shoulders that I stand on. But the people that were in their world, the experiences that I had from them and with them, it exposed me to every part of the socioeconomic strata. I'm as comfortable in any living room in this home, any living room in the city as I am anywhere.
Yeah, you got to be a different type of person because, like I said, a lot of people wouldn't welcome somebody like me on their property or in their home. And that says a lot about you right there, that you're definitely a genuine person. And the reason
I can't imagine you're not welcome anywhere you go.
well, I'm saying not just saying people, of a different race or a different political, just different from what people are used to. Because, like I said, this town, a lot of people are just used to the same old. They don't want anything different. They don't really want change. And that's why I asked you about how could you identify yourself with the 62%, because I am a realist and I just tell it like it is. So whoever wins any of these races, that 62%, or quote unquote, the black population, will put the other person in office or keep them out of office by their actions or their inaction. I mean, that's just point blank. I mean, don't get me wrong, all votes are important, but if one candidate mayoral candidate gets all of the white vote, that's probably about, hypothetically speaking, maybe like 700 or so votes. That's not going to be enough to win. So you're definitely going to have to get some of the other ethnic background votes, and not only get their votes, but encourage them to get out to vote, because what I've been hearing in the community, a lot of people are frustrated. And that's why I'm glad that you're sitting down, expressing yourself, letting people know that you can relate and that you are a real candidate.
Well, and to me, I want everybody's vote who is ready for change. The city has, I feel like, for too long, maybe been controlled or maybe been misled by a small group, and it hasn't benefited everyone. So anybody who is ready for change, who wants change, who is committed to change, I want their vote, and I want them to be involved. As I said before, I want it to be inclusive, not exclusive. We need to work together. A rising tide raises all ships. Everybody in this community can benefit. Those are the people I want to work with, and those are the people I want their support, no matter where they are.
Because the leadership in this town has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth over the years, especially the younger people. Now, a lot of the older people, they live to vote. I mean, retired. They don't have anything else to do but go to their designated poll and vote. But it takes a lot for young people to get off work or fit in their schedules to come and vote. And a lot of people are frustrated. They're angry about the way things are done. They're voted in the past, and nothing's changed. But like I said, I'm glad that you're here to encourage people to get out and vote, because change could be just around the corner. And that's why I wanted to ask you, if elected, how do you plan to change the city?
Well, and that's where I really get excited. So I'm glad we can move into this space and talk about some of the things for the future of Washington. I feel like we've looked backwards for too long. We have got to start looking forward. Old houses are not an economy. We can't continue to try to believe that just because we have homes that were built in the antebellum period that people are going to come here and spend their money. That's just not true. We've got to change Washington. First thing we've got to do is solve the problem with our utilities and the utility bills that everybody gets every month. For so long we have been told it is not fixable, and I'm here to tell you it is fixable. And if I am mayor, we will fix it, and everyone's power bill will go down. And I will predict to you that your power bill will go down at least 30%, and I hope more. We have some of the highest electric rates in the state of Georgia, and we've had those for years. As I said earlier, when I first set my business up here, the first power bill I got was $15,000. No one had warned me that if I put a business here, I was going to have electricity rates that were the highest in the state. It sucks all the money out of our economy when people have to spend $400, $500, $600 a month on their utility bill. We've got to give that back to them. Now, I do want to ask people, when we lower your rates and we get your power bills and utility bills down, please spend that money in this community. Please go to the stores and the restaurants and the other things that are here in Washington and reinvest that money, because if you do, we can get our economy to start to turn. The other thing I want to do is put an incubator in this community. I've worked with the Incubator Innovation Gateway at the University of Georgia for over 10 years, and they do a great job of helping people that have a small business or want to start a business. They provide resources for them, everything from writing business plans to finding funding to doing marketing plans. So combining the incubator and the SBDC here, making that a resource for people in this community that either have a business or want to start a business, I think we can bring 100 new small businesses to Washington in the next 4 years. Quite frankly, we couldn't absorb like a Rivian plant or an Amazon plant or any large processor where they've got 1,000 or 1,500 jobs. Our community's just not ready. Plus, no company that big is going to come here. If they come here and look and they start seeing all the problems we've got with high utility rates, high broadband rates, the problems with our leadership and the acrimony on the city council, they're not going to stay. But if we can lure and start 100 small businesses in this community, and each one of those has 2 to 5 to 10 jobs, that's 500 or 1,000 jobs we can create in the next 4 years. I also want to turn Wilkes Academy into a college. My favorite southern towns are college towns. We have a great building there. The first floor of it has been completely renovated. It's full of classroom equipment. There's already a relationship with Athens Tech. All that's been done. The only thing we need to do is to work with Athens Tech and with the State Board of Regents and the Vocational Board to get them to send professors here to teach college classes. We need a place that when our students graduate from Washington Wilkes High School, that they can start their college career here. Because a lot of students make grades that will allow them to get a Hope Scholarship. That will pay their tuition. But the $4,000 a semester it takes to live in the dorm and the $2,000 a semester it takes to pay for the meal plan is way too expensive. And people just cannot afford that. We can give them a way to start taking college classes here, get their core curriculum done, work a part-time job. After they've got a year of college behind them or 2 years of college behind them, can demonstrate their success, it's a lot easier to get scholarship. And they can transfer to any school and college in the state of Georgia and take their Hope Scholarship with them. That is something I desperately want to do. And the other big thing I want to do is I want peace officers on our street. Never probably in our history has there been a time more important to put peace officers on the street where they can have daily engagement, daily interaction, and make connection with the people in this community. We have so many young people that we can help, and it's sort of like in bowling where you put the bumpers up. We're going to kind of keep them in the lane while they're getting through high school and those difficult young adolescent and teenage years, but we need those feet on the street. We need people that can do that. We have great law enforcement in this community. We need to supplement that in the city, in our neighborhoods, and that is another big goal that I have for my work for this city.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot, Patrick. Sorry.
Hey, that's
Did you
all
see
right.
how excited I get so quickly?
That's all right.
When I start
mean,
talking about the things we can do, I get really excited.
You definitely are a man with a plan, and you seem like you definitely know what this city needs.
Well,
I mean, this city is mostly known for cows and trees, but it seems like you have a plan for everybody, even the least of these. Like I said, the bigger industries here is probably like livestock and timber, but you really sound like you have what it takes to get people to come out and vote for you in November.
Well, and you mentioned plan, and that's something I desperately want. If I'm mayor of this city, we will have a 5-year strategy, and every year we will update that strategy. And the strategy will be built by the people, not by a small collective of either elected officials or people that are hired and work for the city.
So you're more concerned with the future than the history of this town?
I am mostly concerned with the future. That's the only thing I think we need to focus on, because the future is our pathway. The future is what's going to bring. This city has such a rich history. So I talk about the incubator and entrepreneurism. A lot of people don't realize or don't remember that Eli Whitney came to Washington right out at the Smyrna Church and set up the first cotton gin. He had the first incubator. He created the cotton gin in Wilkes County, tested it, perfected it. That changed the entire economy of our country. Entrepreneurship's been done here for hundreds of years. We just need to reinvigorate it. So it's things like that I think we've got to focus on.
Yeah, you can't let the history ruin the future. Like you said, it's all right to have these nice homes and stuff, but how is that benefiting the city as a whole?
No question. No question. And look, we've got to stop worshiping homes that were built by people that either didn't get paid or didn't get paid a living wage.
Amen.
I think there's something wrong with that formula. I want to change that. And if we will invigorate our economy, and if we will get 100 small businesses here, the homes will take care of themselves because people will flock to this community. If we have a 5-year vision, a 5-year strategy for the city of Washington, I believe, in addition to small businesses, we can attract what is the fastest growing segment of America's workforce right now, remote workers. People that can work anywhere, and they can choose where they want to be. They would love to live in a place like Washington, Georgia, and be able to do their job from their home here. And those people have economic mobility, and they bring with them great salaries and great resources. It will help invigorate our community and give us even more economic propulsion.
So that probably describes why neighboring cities seems to be thriving and Washington seems to be just barely surviving. Like all that you just stated, that you're planning to bring growth to this town.
Well, it's a combination of things. So, you know, we've got a community where we've had this constant turnover in our square. Businesses come, people invest their resources, just like I did, and then after a couple years, they get frustrated, they close them down, and they leave. We got to stop that. We have got to learn to keep small businesses when they get here, because those are what attract other people to come and stay here. So you look at those communities that you just mentioned, that they've sort of got the honey that draws the bees. We need to get and keep the honey. Well, you know, 100 years ago, if you had a river, you had an economy. After that, it was a railroad. Then it was in the 50s and 60s interstate. Look at Thompson. They got the interstate. Washington did not. I think that probably will work in our favor long term, but for now, because of the interchange, because of the interstate, the economy at Thompson just booms. The economic engine today is broadband. It is the simplest, least expensive way to grow this economy. And I have heard from people, oh, well, we have broadband and we have fiber optic. Well, we don't have it if people can't afford it. And that's the situation we've got in Washington, Georgia. I pay $175 a month for my internet because I need 1 gigabyte of speed for the work that I do. I talk to so many people in this town that have the same thing at their home, but they also run a business. So they're paying $175 a month twice. Or maybe they've got a business with multiple offices and they're paying it 3 or 4 times. That is so expensive because in every other community, you can get 1 gigabyte of internet speed for $40 or $50 a month, a third of what we're paying here. That has to change. And one of the other reasons it needs to change, we have great schools, and our high school has really done well. We're at an 82% graduation rate, so it's really come up. However, what a lot of people don't realize, our SAT and ACT scores are among the lowest 10 schools in the state. And unfortunately, I don't necessarily believe in standardized testing, but it is the keyhole that every high school student has to pass through to get to great colleges, that builds their pathway for the future. All of the SAT and ACT preparatory materials are now online. But if our students' families can't afford broadband, or if they can't afford a speed that's fast enough to utilize the tool, we're handicapping our students. We're not giving them the resources they need, and consequently we're handicapping ourselves because we're smothering the next generation. So to me, these are the type of things we have got to fix and focus on for the city of Washington.
Oh yeah, and that seemed like it would be definitely a great plan to boost the economy here, attract people here. Let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
You mentioned the peace officer. Sometimes in the city we have our little spurts of violence, especially among the youth, and then it quiets down, and then sometimes I guess it's like a calm before the storm, it'll pick back up. But how would you address the problem with our youth and violence and drugs? Those three are kind of correlated together somehow, but just say for just crime in general, how would you try to, you know, have like solve the crime issue?
Well, so there's no city that's void of crime. I mean, that's just the reality of the world. But I do believe there's so much we can do to reduce crime and really to help our young people not get off the path. The parks in the city are the most decrepit things I've ever seen in my life. Our children don't have places to play. Our young people don't have places to go. We have a number of parks, but they're in such ill repair that we can't give play space to people. If I am mayor, we will invest in play space. A few years ago, the federal government gave Washington, Georgia $2 million in CARES Act funding. I have asked the mayor and the city manager for 2 years to provide an accounting for that. How much did we get and how was that spent? Because $2 million would have been a great investment in our parks, in tennis courts that haven't been refurbished in 20 years, in playground equipment that is 20, 25 years old, in park spaces that are overgrown and run down. I can't get an answer. I can't get a report. I can't get any accounting. To me, that's a problem. But we will find the money. And what I would like to do from School Street to Reese Booker to the park that's on Depot Street to the park on Liberty Street, create a greenway, create pathways, connect all those parks, redo all those parks. Don't give our community excuse that we can't hire lifeguards and open our pool. It's so simple to hire lifeguards. Get the pool open. And by the way, let's build some other pools because communities need pools. One of the sort of basic experiences in almost all of America is as a child being on a swim team maybe. Not everybody does it, but a lot of kids do. Our children don't have that opportunity here because we don't provide the facilities for them. We've got to do that as a city, and if I'm mayor, I will do it. If we create parks that children can go to, that teens can go to and feel safe in, and we connect those parks, we'll give them something to do. They will be more engaged and less bored. When teenagers are bored, they tend to find trouble. And that's what we've got to stop. And if we do, it can help reduce the beginning of crime. To me, that's one of the biggest steps we can take. Give them something to do. Don't let them get attracted to a crime element. For the drugs, it's a national problem. Fentanyl's flowing across our border, our southern border. That's not something that this city can address other than try to keep it out of our city, other than try, if we find it, to squash it and get it away. But it is such a national problem, we've really got to rely on our president and his administration and others to address that.
Okay, so I know a few years ago, they dismantled the City of Washington Police Department. And a lot of people said that that may be the reason of increased sparking crime and this and that. What's your view on the way that the city is, the policing of the city now? And if elected, would there be any changes to the way that is currently being policed?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and again, it goes back to the problems we've had the last few years. Our city's argued with the sheriff department and with the county. I mean, they have to start getting along with people. They have to start finding ways to collaborate. We have a great sheriff's department, great facilities, great equipment, great officers, and they provide a vital service to this community. However, in a city like ours, when you get to the areas where there is more dense housing, more dense population, we need people that are on the street. We need peace officers that walk, like the old, they call it the beat, when a policeman has a beat and he walks that beat and he is a presence on the street that people see, and he comes to know families and he comes to know young people. He gets a sense of where there may be trouble or troubled homes and troubled youth, and he can intercede before it's too late. And that's what we need. We've got to have feet on the street, out in our community, visible and engaging with people. And I believe this is not a new idea, it's a good idea. So many other communities do it. I believe it will tremendously help any problems we have with crime in Washington.
So, I hear a lot about, and I can only imagine how you feel about the current administration. But if elected, I'm sure you had plans of, making adjustments in different areas and different offices and different rooms. But one of the current positions, I think, is the city administrator. I think he recently got a raise not long ago, and it kind of sparked an uproar in the community. A lot of people weren't too happy about that, wanted to know how could he get such a significant pay increase when city workers are just barely, making ends meet. If elected, would you try to, how would you plan treating the city employees?
Well, if I'm elected, every city employee will make a living wage. We have so many employees that we're not paying a living wage, and I don't think that is right. As far as the way the city's managed, I do not believe our city has been managed efficiently. The management is not well done, it's not well organized, it's not well structured. That has to change. I mean, in so many ways, the city of Washington is as much a utility company as we are a city. We sell power, we sell water, and we process sewage. Those are our three biggest revenue streams. That's the bulk of what runs and keeps this city operating. It's incumbent that we run it like a business. We have not done that. We lost $2 million because our accounts of our biggest electric customer were not being monitored, were not being scrutinized, were not being followed. If you run a business and you've got one customer that is your whale, you keep an eye on them daily. We didn't do that, and we ended up losing $2 million. We've had so much problem with people that struggle to pay their electric bills. When you have the highest electric bills in the state, there are going to be people that, because of car trouble or maybe a medical bill or other things, they can't pay their bill or they can't pay it all that month. But cutting somebody's electricity off as fast as possible, then charging them $55, then adding another $150, it doesn't solve their problem. It makes it impossible for them to get out of their problem.
So how would you handle the late fees?
We wouldn't have a $55 late fee. It's egregious, and the way the bills come out,
it just pours salt on the wound. Huh?
The way the bills come out, the bill comes on like the 1st of the month, and oftentimes it doesn't get to you in the mail till the 6th or the 7th, and then it's due on the 15th. I mean, every other utility, every other company that invoices you on a bill every month, you usually have 20 to 30 days with that bill till you have to have it paid. That'd be the first thing we do, is we correct our billing. And by the way, it's 2023. Why can't everyone pay their bill, get their bill electronically without having to pay fees? You don't need that. It's actually an advantage to the city if people can pay it electronically. It saves us money, it improves our accounting. These are the kind of small business-minded changes that I believe we would have to make, and we would do away with the $55 late fee. Now, if somebody is continually late on their bill, then we're going to have to somehow get their attention, and that may mean that there is ultimately a late fee. But I don't think the way the system is being used right now is right or fair.
Okay. Now, years ago, when I was a lot younger, they redid the districting, and now it seems like District 1 is predominantly white district. I mean, District 1 is predominantly black district, District 2 is predominantly white district as far as the city council seats. You know how it looks, 3 white, 3 black, and the mayor being the tiebreaker. And like you said earlier, I think one of the biggest problems here, we can't work together, can't come to agreement. It just always comes to 3, and then the mayor is the tiebreaker. And you really don't get anywhere fast with that process. So if the mayor, how would you go about when there's a 3-3 tie? How would you go about being the tiebreaker?
Well, and sort of what we've been talking about is a good example of it. I mean, to me, it's an embarrassment and it's a shame that we have a track record now with our city council of 3 white councilmen voting for an issue, 3 black voting against it, and the mayor breaking the tie for the white over and over again. Just like this $55 fee, where the fee was done away with in one meeting, and then because evidently one white council person was not there, the next meeting they suddenly put it on the agenda again, 3-3, mayor breaks the tie. Same thing with the raise for the city manager. 3 whites voted for it. Andy Anderson was promoting the second raise for the city manager. 3 blacks voted against it. The mayor broke the tie. I personally don't believe that if your business is not being run properly, that the COO of that business should get a $10,000 raise and then a few months later get a $20,000 raise. I certainly don't believe that if somebody gets a raise, that the people that craft that raise on the city council should make it retroactive by 6 months. That was one of the most absurd aspects of that. I didn't even know it was in there, and when I finally read it, I couldn't believe it. But to make that $20,000 raise go back 6 months, which ended up adding another $7,000 or $8,000 to insult to injury. So to me, this is just all heartbreak. I want a city council that is collaborative with like-minded people that will work together. We will not put every issue into a racial box, right, where 3 have to vote one way and 3 have to vote another, or even if we have 3-3. It will not be that way. And I certainly will impress on any other members that they don't do that. It truly is my belief that culture starts at the top. I don't blame the people that work at the city for a lot of our problems, because the responsibility for these things rests with the mayor. It's the mayor's responsibility to set culture. It's the mayor's responsibility to collaborate and work with the council to get the best operations for our city working and going, and it is the mayor's responsibility to see that that is perpetuated through his entire term. And
Right.
that is something I think we've been missing and lacking in this community.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you see things from that perspective because a lot of time, a lot of people are colorblind, and I learned a long time ago that everybody your color is not your kind. Sometimes you just because you the same color, you're not going to always agree with that person, and it's all about, it's not black and white, it's what's wrong and what's right. And I'm almost done here. And like you said about the head, it starts with the mayor. I was always taught that the head is the most important part of the body. I mean, if the head isn't right, then the body can't be right. So it's very important to have the head right, and then I'm sure the body will follow. And you're running for the head of the city of Washington, and I'm sure with the right head, the body will definitely follow. Let me ask you something I don't think I asked. If you don't mind me asking, what is your faith, like religion-wise?
Oh, well, I grew up in the Methodist Church.
Okay.
And I consider myself a strong believer.
Okay.
My children all grew up in the Methodist Church. I taught Sunday school for two of my daughters when they were in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. It's always been a big part of our life. When my children got a little older, the youngest especially, there's a new church in Athens called Athens Church, and it's affiliated with North Point.
Across from the mall? Across the street from the mall?
Yeah, across the street from the mall, the former Walmart complex.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Andy Stanley is sort of the lead pastor
Right.
of there. So anyway, a lot of my children's friends were going to that church, and my children said, we want to try it. And you know, if my children want to go to church somewhere, I just follow. So we did that. So we started going to Athens Church, and so really I sort of keep a foot in both.
Okay, well, by me being a pastor, I just had to ask that. I just had to ask that because, I mean, and I believe that for anything to work, you have to keep God first and know Him and have a relationship with Him, or you don't stand a chance of anything working out. And I'm glad that you are a believer. And are you familiar with a company here called Clean Sparks?
I am.
Okay. And are you well versed with the MEAG? Do you know much about the MEAG contract?
Well, I can't get a copy of the MEAG contract.
Oh, well, what I'm saying, you know what it is, and basically,
Yeah.
in a nutshell, how it operates and what it is?
Yeah, so MEAG is complex. And for years, and I still hear this when I'm out talking with people in the community, people have been led to believe that there is some contract that prevents us from lowering our utility rates. And that's not true. So years ago, the concept behind MEAG was let's get 40 or 50 cities together in the state of Georgia, rural communities mostly, and let's buy power in bulk. Because if we buy power in bulk, we can get it at a discount, and then we can resell it to the people that live in our community. And we can use that lower cost power to lure businesses into our community. And that's how it operates.
So you're something like maybe, I don't know if this is a good analogy, like something like a stockholder or something? You say you get all the different cities together?
Yes, exactly. So we're a stockholder. The city of Washington is every resident of the city of Washington is a stockholder in MEAG because we own, we buy, we support MEAG through our purchase of electricity. But the distinguishing part of this is we buy the power from MEAG, and because it's a utility, it's a commodity, it rises and falls like gas prices do at the pump or natural gas prices. But we buy it at one price, and then our city decides how much to mark up that electricity before we bill our residents and our businesses. Most of the other MEAG cities do not increase the price of their power to their residents the way we do. That has been one of the biggest problems here, and that is what we've got to stop, and that's what we've got to
So
change.
the problem is not MEAG, it's the leadership here in this town?
The problem, and I go back to, the problem is the way that the city has been managed and is being managed. It's not being run like a business. With MEAG and with power, we have to do forward buys. That means that every year we have to project into the next year, and we have to say to MEAG, okay, we're going to make a commitment on this amount of power. It's a very risky thing for the city. If we overcommit, and let's say we tell them we'll buy 50 and we only use 40, we still have to pay them for 50. MEAG always encourages people to bid more, because if we bid 40 and we use 50, then anything over 40 we have to pay a little more for. So it may cost us more, but the risk is huge. I am so excited that CleanSpark is in this community. I'm so excited about what they're doing. They brought on 15,000 new hashers in June. We added an 82 kilowatt substation to service all that. We are selling them more power. We will go from a 14 million to a 24 million this year to a projected 30 or 35 million dollar budget next year because of the revenues that we're bringing in because of that increase.
So MEAG actually sounds like a good thing.
It's a good and bad thing. Here's the issue, Patrick. Again, we have to bid. We have to commit. If we commit too much and we don't buy it, then we're at risk and we have to pay for that.
Okay.
The other thing is, with the work that we're doing with CleanSpark, we have an agreement with them, and it's a good agreement finally to get a little bit of a fixed override, but it is so small. So all the electricity they buy that passes through our city to them has a little incremental profit in it for the city that we benefit from.
So that one company definitely helps the city budget out, that CleanSpark?
It can help the city budget out, but we are just getting started, and that relationship really has to be managed, and we really have to manage the relationship well with MEAG, which we're not doing. For the last month, I have asked the city for a copy of the proposed budget for 2024. For 2 weeks, I got nothing. I finally had to file an open records request. I mean, as a candidate for mayor, I need to be able to talk about this with people.
Right, because that's why I just wanted to ask, because it was brought to my attention. I don't have the facts here with me now, but they said that CleanSpark company, it uses a significant amount of electricity and provides a lot of revenue for the city.
A lot of revenue is a relative term. It's not necessarily a lot of revenue yet. And it could be revenue we end up losing if we don't manage it properly. So after 2 weeks of not getting a budget, I filed an open records request. I still got no response. The law in Georgia says if a citizen files an open records request, the city has 3 days to respond. I got no response. Finally, I called the Attorney General for the state of Georgia. The Attorney General got involved, and the answer I got was there is no budget information available for 2024. That information will come out in the 3rd week of November. So I guess Thanksgiving is when we'll learn about our budget. But we only have about 3 weeks to vote on it and pass it when it comes out, because our new year starts January 1st. I will tell you this, if I am mayor, we will not wait till the last 3 weeks to plan a budget for a $35 million operation. That will start in June. It will be a transparent process. Everybody in the community will be involved. You will be able to see what we're budgeting for. You will see what projections are. And we will have time to meet with our customers like CleanSpark and understand their vision and their strategic plan and how that fits with ours, so we make a very good, well-informed decision about commitments we make to MEAG. That is probably the most important thing we can do. And the biggest thing we got to keep in mind is if we have a big customer and they're the whale in our customer base, we carry the risk of that. If anything happens to them and we've made a commitment to MEAG and we lose them for any reason, we're responsible for that. It's a big risk and a big burden for the residents of this city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I thank you for enlightening me on that. And again, I thank you for reaching out to me and allowing me to your home to sit down and learn all this information and share with the community, because I know a lot of people were curious about who you were. But I am sure after viewing this, they will be well aware who you are. You're a very knowledgeable man, seem well qualified. You provided us with a lot of valuable information on your plans for the city, boosting the economy here as far as the youth, and policing and solving a lot of the other issues in the community. And definitely the youth is our future. I read somewhere, I think it was a quote from Frederick Douglass, it said it's a lot easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And I think you have a good plan for this city. And I consider myself a content creator, so I always have to lead with a little something crazy. So I remember a few years ago, it was an artist came to Washington by the name of Tucker. Have you ever heard that name, Tucker? Tucker?
The King of Swing.
The King of Swing.
I love his music.
Hey, and I remember you attended that concert, did you not?
I did attend that concert.
Okay.
I met him that night. He was fabulous.
Okay.
Somewhere I have a selfie with Tucker.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah, you my type of guy. And you also know another great one's coming here the 8th of next month out on Scoshaw's Road at the campground, King George.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great news.
He'll be here October the 8th, and that'll be a great place you can come and meet some of the constituents.
I look forward to that.
It's on a Sunday afternoon. Yes, sir. Well, again, Mr. Ken is glad to finally get to meet you, and I wish you well in this upcoming election. And
Well,
I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. It's been a great pleasure and an honor to meet and spend time with you. Thank you for everything you do in this community, because we need more of that.
Amen.
And I'm so impressed and congratulate you on the skills that you have developed, the way you're investing your resources, your intelligence, your experience. It's a great thing for Washington and all the communities you touch. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.